Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This episode features the highlights of the conversation with Nathan Maynard, a 2015 Van Buren graduate who is an assistant public defender at the Office of the Ohio Public Defender. The highlights focus on how a typical week looks for Nathan, how TV law is different from real life, how students don't need to have pre-law or political science degrees to go to law school, and much more. If you want to learn more about Nathan's career journey, you can always watch or listen to his full interview. And if you find this podcast useful, please share it with someone else who could benefit from it. Enjoy the highlights, and I'll see you here next Monday for a brand new episode. Have a great week.
I'm in a little bit of a unique position. I'm in the youth defense department, which means I represent young people. And at the state level, that generally means post-disposition, which is basically after trial, after everything's been settled. So I spend a lot of time traveling around the state to different facilities where these youth are held in detention. So I try to avoid typical days because it tends to be typical week is a better way to frame this. So I'll generally have 1 or 2 visits a week where I'm going in and talking to kids. And my representation tends to be about the conditions of confinement, which is just basically ensuring that their constitutional rights are being protected and not being violated by these facilities. I also do a couple of other random things. So in the juvenile system, they're allowed to request judicial release from their judge to be released prior to the end of their sentence. So I can help them with motions for that. I can help them with confinement credit, which basically just means they get credit for any time they spend in a different facility. So there's some assorted motions I help these kids with. So generally, like I said, I'll do 1 or 2 visits a week. My days before and after are generally preparing, making my list, getting things around, printing documents. And then after, obviously, following up. A lot of times that's following up with the Department of Youth Services. You're going to probably hear me say DYS a lot. That's the state department that runs these facilities. So following up with DYS staff with any concerns that the kids have. And if it's something serious enough, reaching out to superintendents, immediately talking with them. So that tends to be my normal week. I'll have occasional hearings on those motions. So I'll be in court rarely, I would say, maybe every other month or so. But most of my work is actually in facilities talking to these kids. So there's 2 of us that actually do this specific work, the conditions of confinement work. And that's in the whole state. So there's some pressure that comes with that. But we also have a team of about 12 attorneys that deal with youth defense generally. But there's only 2 of us that do that conditions work. So everybody will go to facilities occasionally, but me and the other conditions attorney tend to be there, like I said, pretty often. So me and my wife are actually watching the show Suits, which is a fun show, but also not accurate. So I like to remind people that attorney work is not all, walking in and slamming a folder on the table and being like, I solved the problem. A lot of the time it truly is just talking with other attorneys, talking with the people you work with, and, trying to find the best path forward. And a lot of that is collaborative, as much as it can be, which is, interesting because criminal law and the juvenile law is obviously an adversarial process. You tend to have a prosecutor and a defender. But yeah, I like to remind people, it's not like the show Suits most of the time. It's truly not. So supply chain management was what I went to college for. It's actually why I picked Eastern Michigan specifically. It seemed like a good mix with my personality, a good match with my personality, because it's data driven and it's a lot of numbers, but it's also, somewhat people facing. It's not just like an accountant which is what a lot of my families were, which was not appealing to me. But you get kind of the best of both worlds, being able to interact with people and collaborate while also being kind of a data-driven job. I just happened into moot court, which is, you may have heard of mock trial, which is, you pretend to go through a trial. Moot court is a similar thing at the appellate level. So it's you pretend to go through an appeal. And I was just taking a gen ed class, and one of the professors was the coach of the moot court team. And I got like, in one of his classes, he convinced me to join the moot court team. I was like, sure. And I wasn't doing anything that semester. I'm like, another extracurricular sounds great. As my family and my now wife would tell you, I'm great at arguing. So why not do it? I actually, that is how I fell into, oh, this is a lot of fun to research the law, to get up in front of somebody and argue it. And I started doing moot court then, and I started taking more political science classes and law classes, and I ended up minoring in public law and government. And as I was going through moot court is when I was like, okay, maybe this lawyer thing is something I want to pursue. And that's how I ended up, starting to apply to law schools and then going to Ohio State. I would actually recommend, if you think you want to go to law school, don't do pre-law, don't do poli-sci. I think that's what most people when you're in law school will have gotten a political science degree or will have been on a pre-law track. And I don't think that hurts to, talk to advisors about that. That's also what you want to do. But I think it's very helpful to have a more well-rounded experience in college. And I think it helps you even like down the road if you're like application process to stand out, to be like, this is something else I did. It's like I said, for me, it just gave a more well-rounded experience. It kind of helped when I went to law school. I was like, oh, I can then use this if I do business law. And when I was doing like a clinic in law school, I was doing business law. And I was helping, local small business owners. And I was like, oh, I have some idea when you start saying, like these supply chain words, like I'm like, oh, okay, I know what this is, and I can maybe help with that a little easier. And I think at least I felt like just with like the minor in public law and government was enough baseline. Because when you get into law school, it is kind of you reset. Like we're going to teach you a brand new type of school. We're going to teach you in a new way. And I think there's up and downsides to that separately. But I think, there's no big advantage to be like, oh, I'm going to do pre-law here. And honestly, as a practical matter, if you get to law school, you find out, hey, this isn't for me. If you have, a different degree like supply chain management, oh, this is a good fallback plan that I have. Because like I mentioned, you don't know if you like things until you do. In law school, it's definitely one of those things that you either, some people really excel in it and some people really struggle with it. And it's, like I said, it's a different type of schooling. So, you may not like it, and that's perfectly fine. And having, like I said, a backup plan may be a good idea. It really does matter just to get your application in the door, your LSAT score and your GPA. So it was a transition I had to make for sure when I started like, oh, I am definitely going to want to go to law school. So I'm going to have to take my grades very seriously, which is something I did not do well in high school. I don't know if you remember. It was something that I was not very good at applying myself. And, I think part of that is just, I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, maybe, and I didn't have focus. But it's important to, really just apply yourself to the best of your ability for sure. If it's a path you want to do even more school. I was definitely shy and reserved and didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I didn't seek things out and I didn't try new things. And I think that's my biggest regret in looking back is what I wish I did more of. Absolutely, putting yourself out there, trying new things. Because, even when you go to that person and you shadow them and you're like, this is something I don't want to do, which is something that happened to me. I shadowed a graphic artist and I was like, I don't have this talent. And also, I don't think I want to do this all day. It's like, okay, let's cross that off the list and we know what we're going to next. So I think being a little more willing earlier to try new things. And then, like I also said, is, apply yourself in school truly. I don't think you may necessarily realize how big of an impact it has down the road.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.